1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. Tuesday show live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. It is the Royal Blue Podcast. It is Tuesday, January 2026. I am your host, Ian Kroll, and joining me in the Royal Blue studio for this Everton versus Wolves preview show, we have Joe Thomas and Gavin Buckland. First off, Joe, how are things? All good?
Yeah, not too bad, cheers.
No problems getting into work today with the snow, and you made it safely and soundly?
Well, yeah, it took a while on the Mersey rail, but yeah, all right, I'm here.
Good stuff. Gav, how are things? Your first pod of the year? Last one you did was the 31st, wasn't it? I think it's the first pod of the year for you.
Did I not?
Joe's already done his first pod. We're still waiting on Chris Beasley to do his first pod as well.
Chris is normally all over this pod, isn't he?
Connor O'Neill as well. He's still hasn't done one.
So both on Sunday at the game. Yeah, fine, mate. Yeah, fine.
Good stuff.
Good to be back in the studio.
Have you got plenty to get off your chest?
Let's wait and see on. Let's wait and see on that.
Okay. Well, we are live, so get your questions in, get your comments in, and let us know your thoughts of the Brentford game, what you do for the Wolves game, and just give us anything you want to put in the comments. Let us know. Agenda-wise, I'm sure Gav and Joe, as I've just mentioned there, want to get a few things off the chest. Obviously, a bit of an embarrassing 4-2 defeat to Brentford on Sunday, so we are going to touch on that. Me and Tony Scott did an immediate post-match podcast following that game on Sunday. So you can go back and listen to that, but we will touch on it with the final word today, and then we will try and slowly move it on to Wolves preview, as well as maybe some transfer opinions and stuff like that. So, yeah. Joe, start with you first, because, Brentford, it wasn't a good day. It wasn't a good match whatsoever. David Moyes faced a bit of criticism for his, tinkering or team changes. And we changed the back line from a winning team and, a team that kept a clean sheet from Nottingham Forest. Me and Tony gave our opinion on that on Sunday. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a bad day. There's no doubt about that, is there? And, not saying this for the benefit of hindsight, because we do, me and Chris do what we would choose our sides before the game each day and put it there in writing for everyone to see and check against. And, I wouldn't have started Michael Keane on Sunday. Not necessarily because I was that bothered about changing a win defence. A lot of people are saying that. He also did exactly what he did at the start of last month after Bournemouth, when Everton followed up that. They had Jacob Ryan move to centre-back in the brilliant performance, clean sheet at Bournemouth, and a win at Bournemouth, and then they had Forest at the weekend. They changed it, brought Michael Keane straight back. It worked fine then. So, it's easy to kind of have a lot of head loss, and, I thought what Moyes did was entirely predictable. We can see that's his favoured back four of the season so far. Whether or not it should be, I think, is open to question. But I think for me, with Michael Keane's had a good season, and I think he's vindicated the decision to extend his contract for another year. But it's been clear that he's been playing with a knock for a while, or either had one knock that's kept flaring, or had a couple of issues that keep occurring, because he did miss that Bournemouth game. And when he missed the Bournemouth game at the start of the month, and he misses the game at Forest at the end of the month, like a lot of players, it's completely understandable if he's got a bit of fatigue or he's got a few issues. Yeah. So I struggled to see how he could be fully fit for that game, and I'm not convinced that he was. Looking at his performance, he didn't quite look like he had the pace of the game. That wasn't the only issue, but we've had Jacob Ryan did at centre back. I thought there was an opportunity there to keep it the same. I do have some. I think I can understand Moyes' thinking. I think the reality is, look, he started Nathan Patterson midweek. Patterson, I thought, played pretty well at Forest. Took him about 20 minutes to get up to the pace of the game. The first 20 minutes, he struggled against Callum Hudson-Odoi. But once he did, he was relatively effective. But he started cramping up after 60 minutes. That's the first proper action that he's had in since pre-season. So I always thought it would be a lot to ask Patterson to start 2 games in a row. I thought that was probably going to be unlikely. And then you're in a situation where you kind of gambling whatever you do, whether you move Jake O'Brien across and put O'Keane back in the middle. If he's not 100%, that's a gamble. If you play Merlin Roll at right back, well, that's a gamble. We haven't seen much of him. He finished the Forest game there. That is what I would have done, by the way. Like, I thought there was more to be gained by doing that than there was to be lost. And there's no way you're pulling James Garner out of centre midfield the way he's been playing to play at full back. That'd be absolute madness. So there isn't a perfect solution there. And I did think it was they lost for more reasons than moving Jake O'Brien away from centre back. So we could focus on that too much, but it isn't. Whilst it was a lineup that I expected and a lineup I think I could understand, it wasn't one that I agreed with, and the performance, whether or not it fell down to the starting 11 or not, just wasn't very good. It was a bad day. It was a chastening day at the office, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Gav, obviously the team selection and what Moyes did change in a winning team, a lot of fans are picking up on that. And I've said in the past that a manager does open himself up to criticism if he changes a winning team. And sometimes a manager has to change a winning team.
Absolutely, yeah.
For tactical reasons and stuff like that. So where do you sit on it? Because an interesting point from Joe about James Garner, obviously playing really well in that central midfield position. Are we completely ruling him out now as an option as right back?
I don't think that's the point here, really. It's Joe's spoke about it, and covered the points there. For me, while I understand the point of play O'Brien at right back because he's a better right back than Patterson, on Sunday, it was a case for me of, do we gain more by playing O'Brien at right back compared to Patterson than what we lose by playing Michael Keane instead of O'Brien? And to me, we obviously don't. We didn't, there was more to be gained by playing O'Brien at centre half on Sunday than playing him right back.
Obviously, just I mean, that works on the premise that Patterson's fully fit and able to start.
But that's my point is, but that sort of the Swiss that I said about, but you've got an unfit Michael Keane playing at right back. We're going to play an unfit defender. I'll play an unfit right back every time before an unfit centre half. Because that's where especially the way Thiago played, that's the bigger risk. You leave yourself to be open far more in the middle of the defence than what you are outright. And there are options, as you say. Rail was an option on Saturday, so it's Sunday. So it's not necessarily. There
was the option to not have to play anybody unfit, wasn't there?
It could have
might be jockeying players out of position, but you can play a fully fit Roll at right back and a fully fit O'Brien at centre back, and
so we left ourselves effectively with an unfit centre half compared to the option of having an unfit right back, or as Joe said, a fit player playing at right back, and that was just a really bad decision by Moyes, and I didn't understand the thinking. And then that infected the rest of the team. And so, it wasn't a question for me, I'll play O'Brien because he's a better right back than Patterson. It was like, is you don't gain as much from that as what you would have done by playing O'Brien instead of a unfit Michael Keane. And I think that was a really bad mistake by Moyes. And we'll talk about his end-game changes, I suppose, later on. So the selection of that was the key thing for me, and untypical Moyes as well, because he is somebody who throughout his managerial career, especially at Everton, relies so much on that partnership of the two strong centre halves and the goalkeeper, and for him to tinker around with that and weaken that at the expense of not having a weakened right hand side, I found that a really strange decision that he made. And as it transpired, as early as whatever, they scored 15 minutes, whatever it was, it backfired by that stage. And it backfired during the game because I thought Thiago was excellent. I thought he was probably the best centre-forward performance we've seen against us, certainly at home, since Harry Kane and playing for Pochettino. But one of the reasons why he was excellent is Moyes made a bad decision by not playing two fit centre-halves from the start.
I agree with you. I wouldn't have changed it personally. And if...
But it's not about a winning team, changing them in the team. It's like putting the players that are available to you in your defence to optimise it.
Maybe, but there was certainly better options from an attacking point of view than a Jake O'Brien. Nathan Patterson or a James Garner. Either way, I know you probably disagree with James Garner there, but what I would say is I don't think we necessarily lost that game completely because of Moyes' decisions. We started that game well. We started that game very well. I think we had the better chance with McNeil. I thought we looked good. And then what we need is our captain in James Tarkowski to take responsibility. If you make a mistake, don't let that go to your head. He had a terrible game, all game, throughout that game from making that mistake. And it filtered through the whole team.
But if you've got an unfit... If you're a centre-half... and your partner, however long you played with them, they played together a long time, going back to Burnley, and you know that they're a little bit, they're not 100%, they're a little bit under the weather. That's gonna unsettle. I'm not making an excuse here for Tarkowski because he was poor. That is going to unsettle you, isn't it? Really, you're probably going to be looking at their area, their sides of the pitch, and thinking I've got to cover a little bit on their side, as well as my side, because they're patently unfit.
Did Tarkowski make that poor pass because Keane was next to him?
No, I just think it unsettled him during the game. He had to go at Keane, wasn't it? Was it the fourth goal, was it?
He was unsettled throughout following that mistake for me. I mean, he was doing what you say he does all the time, trying to prove that he's the hardest man on the pitch. But second half, he was getting... Obviously, they were trying to wind him up, the Brentford attack, or defence, sorry, and he was biting. He was barging into players.
Thiago trying to wind him up, wasn't he, as well? I thought he played really well.
You don't want your captain. You don't want your captain to be doing
exactly.
That, and that filtered throughout the whole team.
But I think some of that comes back from unsettling the back, the two central defenders, unsettling that on Sunday.
I agree with you on the team,
and I think that affected Tarkowski's performance. There wasn't an explanation for this performance, and let's face it, asking O'Brien to play right back, centre half, right back,
that doesn't help the situation.
I don't think that's ideal as well. There's lack of continuity there. I just thought it was a poor choice by Moyes, and not one I would expect him to make based on his managerial history and the way he sets his teams up to go with choosing to play an unfit centre half compared to an unfit right back. And he's also got fit options there.
I don't want to be too critical of Tarkowski, Joe, because I love him, and obviously the goal that he scored, against Liverpool, it will always go down as one of the best ever. So, that's fine. But we are limited in what we can do, across the squad, and certainly in defence. We know the issues we've had with that. Let's face it, our fourth choice centre back, in effect, Michael Keane, has played more games than most this season. But with Tarkowski, if he makes a mistake or he doesn't have a good game, there doesn't seem to be a consequence to either take him out. And I know he's the captain, you always want to keep your leader on the pitch. But I don't know, I just think we have got that option now with a Jake O'Brien who can come in, whether that's for Tarkowski or a Michael Keane, if injured, or make a mistake. I just think we need to get out of this, or Moyes needs to get out of this mindset now of O'Brien is just not a right back. Certainly, he can do a job when he needs to do it defensively, but from an attacking point of view, certainly at home, this is why we're failing at home at this moment in time. We're not picking up the results because the emphasis should be on us to get hold of the ball and attack, and you need your fullbacks to do that. And Michalenko quite clearly is not a good attacking fullback. He can do your job as a defensive fullback, same as Jake O'Brien from a defensive point of view. I mean, we'll come on to transfers and the right-back situation and what we can do in January, but there's got to be, I mean, you've already alluded to it, there's got to be more options than just Jake O'Brien as the right-back at this moment in time. I think there is.
Yeah, we need a couple of mindset changes. I think one of them is to blame Keane for is to stop blaming Keane for everything as well, because there seems to be a lot of focus on that from the weekend, and we forget that we're talking here as if it was some bizarre decision that Moyes wanted to move back to Keane and Tarkowski. I think probably was if Keane wasn't 100% fit, but the impression that we've had is that Keane hasn't been 100% fit for a while, and he's still been part of a centre-back partnership with Tarkowski that's kept clean sheets against Burnley, against Fulham, against United. That hasn't been that centre-back partnership. I mean, I think that centre-back partnership limits Everton. I think that they need to get to a point where they have O'Brien or Brantwaite at centre-back so they can all push up a little bit more and have a lot more pace in that. But they haven't been the problem this season because they've been the bedrock for so many of the good results. So that's probably why Moyes was so keen to get back to it if he could. I think Tarkowski had a poor game, and I'm with you a little bit on Izzy, and also with Moyes in the first 10 minutes. Everton actually started pretty well.
Yeah,
thought they had the good chance from McNeil. Thiago cleared off the line from Tarkowski. I didn't think there was necessarily if there was a problem with the setup, it hadn't emerged then. And also, it wasn't a factor in the goal. The goal came from a self-implosion. It came from a mistake. Tarkowski made the mistake with the pass. And as a result of that, I think that obviously Thiago's drifted off the back of Michael Keane. But when Michael Keane sat there on the edge of his box with Tarkowski on the ball facing forward, I think he's set for Tarkowski to not play a risky ball to a player who's not open. He's probably sent to get up to pitch because he thinks he's going to launch it in the channels or something, which also towards Tiano Barry, which is what he would look to do 9 times out of 10. So I don't think that the goal necessarily came from a selection issue. It came from an individual mistake, and look, everybody makes them. Tarkowski's done a lot of wonderful things for Everton in his time at the club, so we're not going to kind of haul him over the coals for that. But I am also with you. I think that I'm not sure his reaction was the best. He had a bad game the other day, and I think that's fine to say. He kind of won a lot of duels with Thiago, but you could just see that he unnerved him. It was like Gav says, it was a really. And it was kind of the point that I was trying to make in my match report. In my match report, I kind of mainly focused on the job that Thiago does in comparison to Barry and Beto, and it wasn't so much a case of having a go at Barry and Beto, more of just what Everton are missing by not having a proper number 9. It's not just scoring goals, because obviously he was clinical the other day, but it's occupying defenders in the way that he did. Yeah. But he caused Tarkowski a lot of problems. He clearly discomforted the whole of the Everton defence and bore the rewards from it. But it was clear that there were a lot of poor performances in that Everton side after that goal. And I think it wasn't just Tarkowski that kind of perhaps lost his confidence or lost his head a little bit, but Robinham did as well. He had a bad game. Robinham. He's had some very good games recently.
He started off okay, and then
he was, as I say, you got the impression he went into his shell thinking he might have been responsible for that goal, and that goal wasn't his fault. But the repercussions of it, you kind of got the impression that Tarkowski was thinking a little bit of should have been on your toes more, when might have been better as a captain and senior player just put his hands up and say, Tim, maybe he did this where we're watching this from 50 yards away. So, but you didn't get the impression that he'd gone, Tim, that's my fault. I'm sorry. You crack on. Like, I take responsibility for that. It looked like it kind of undermined the whole of the team. He spoke to Michael Ball yesterday about it. He was just saying that togetherness that they had at Forest just seemed to go after that first goal, and they just kind of lost all coherence in there. One of the things I noticed a lot in the first half was, I thought Grealish had a pretty good game, and I thought Grealish tried really hard to drag Everton through that. And going forward, going backwards, obviously got a couple of assists. He's teed up McNeil for that effort early doors, but you could just see him having to direct players. And we talk about selection at the back, selection elsewhere on the pitch. Everton's press was all over the place. Some players were pressing, some weren't. They didn't know what to do. McNeil isn't really a presser. There are things that Dwight McNeil can do very, very well on a football pitch. At number 10, with the exception of when the ball drops to his feet, to his left foot, 20 yards out, or if you have him in a situation where it was a brilliant through ball for Ghana for the first goal against Forest. If you give him a bit of time on his left foot, he's magic. But you don't get a lot of that in the Premier League, and you can't have players on the pitch just for that one chance that they might get. Saw Grealish do a lot of kind of complaining at McNeil for not pressing as aggressively, and everything just became so disjointed. And Brentford were just, if they're anything, they're a really savvy side, and they just figured out that they could play around Everton, didn't they? Like, the midfield became all over the place.
That balance had gone. When
McNeil went,
McNeil went to start, played a lot on the left hand side. There was time, wasn't in the first half, and he was by Grealish, and we talk about the importance of that play behind the strikers, how they relate with the strikers, but it's also how they relate to the two midfielders behind them. And Dewsbury Hall's got that balance right, hasn't he, when he plays? But when McNeil plays, it's more biased what he can do for the strikers rather than the two behind him. As a consequence, on Sunday, we had the shape had gone in midfield. The two midfielders then started getting pulled out of position. And Brentford took advantage of that. And then that was something Moyes, I would argue, rather than addressing that problem at half-time, he actually made it worse. And I think McNeil, didn't help his selection from that perspective. You just get the impression at the moment that the way Moyes has sets up his teams and likes to, that he's probably a little bit more comfortable playing away from home than at home, where he can play. We can play a little bit of more. I hate that phrase, low block, but I'm just about to use it. You play a bit low, and that suits the two centre halves as well. But at home, where we have to push up the pitch a little bit more, the opposition can just hit the spaces. Known to full well at the two centre halves are not the quickest. You know, like Newcastle did, Brentford did a couple of times on Saturday, Sunday. Pull the centre halves out of position, and then you can take advantage of that. Whereas away from home, you can sit a little bit deeper, and the opposition are afforded those opportunities.
Just jump in there with a question. Why? Okay, I know what you're going to say because we're at home, but why do we need to do that? If we can't play like that at home, why are we doing it?
I think there's probably two things that are worth bearing in mind. One is just they are missing so many players. Yeah, they have a weak squad at the best of times. That's not a that side's a completely different side if you put Keenan, Dewsbury Hall, Idrissa Gueye and Ilman and Dye in it. Like it's vastly different. And then if you put Jared Brantwaite in it as well, then all of a sudden it. So I think that we have to kind of give some leeway. No,
I agree with that perspective. I think we're all frustrated.
I think I'll get round to the question that you first asked here, I think, Ian, when you started us off on this, because I think that lots of things went wrong at the weekend, and we could end up spending a lot of time focused on things that might have just been one-offs or out of characters. Because I don't think Moyes made the best decisions with his selection, but I don't think that's what put Everton on the back foot. How that game would have transpired, I don't know, but ultimately, whilst Moyes did a few things that I wouldn't necessarily have done, they started pretty well, and they fall one down because of individual mistakes, and then I think they kind of fail to improve on their position. They go south rather than things don't get better, because I think individual mistakes, they just kind of compounded it. I don't know if the players let Moyes down at the weekend. I think they let themselves down. I think there just was a collective bad day at the office. Where it probably makes more sense to focus our attention on is what are the things that were a problem on Saturday that we keep seeing regardless of whether or not Everton have got a full strength side, and those are the recurring themes that I think we've got to worry about. And that brings me back to your question first, which is like the right back situation needs addressing. Like it just does. I personally think the left back situation isn't ideal either, but Everton at fullback is it's a weakness that's been apparent all season. It's one they've had a good season regardless of, but it's clear that not having a natural right back, for all the good that Jake O'Brien has done, is massively restricting the side in terms not just defensively but also going forward. Not having a left back that can better support Jack Grealish is an issue at times, and then there are a couple of others as well. They haven't really. Central midfield is still a bit of an issue. James Garnett's brilliant. Okay, Idrissa Gueye's out, so you can kind of overlook that a little bit. But there are a couple of others, and others corners. Like the corners seem to be a bit of an issue at the minute, and that's a problem because it doesn't seem to be getting any better. And those are my worries coming out of this from a kind of a tactical point of view. The right back situation doesn't get addressed until you've got a right back, and the corners is something that keeps happening. And both of those will be issues even when everyone comes back towards the end of the month, and they're the things we probably have to maybe put our energy into trying to solve.
We 100% need a right back, and if there was someone out there that we were looking for in the summer, I would fast track that now. To
well, it was Kenny Tete, and they thought they got him, but that went to port. But why there hasn't been a backup? Bearing in mind it's been an issue for years now, not just.
I mean, Gav, there's a comment here from.
Did we answer your question, by the way?
Yeah, from my question. Yeah. So the Blues have said, "Good luck sitting back at home against the Brentford. The fans wouldn't allow it."
Yeah, now
I agree with that. Yeah. I completely agree with that. However, I'm sure we all do, because I certainly do consider Moyes to be a pragmatic manager who is flexible and can change. We know that's his kind of style. But if you can't play to your strengths, then if you can play to your strengths away, why can't you do it at home?
I mean, I'm just going to completely argue against myself. There's been some away foot performances recently where United, they were on the front foot fit, weren't they? For front foot, that's a cliche, isn't it? The first 15 minutes.
But let's perspective what Joe was saying. We had the strongest squad. We had a stronger 11.
But I mean, Brentford had a few players missing on Sunday, didn't he? They've probably got a bigger squad. So going on to your question is, we'll be tired just sitting deep with a low block at home, and you're reacting away from home, you're reacting what the other team do. So that's why we end up playing, say, Forest.
But that's
like
how this team plays well at this moment in time, I think.
Plays well away from home by being
with an Ndai in the
offensive.
team, with a Kane and Dewsbury in the team.
Possibly. But you just get the impression defensively, with obviously with Keane and Tarkowski, given their age. I mean, how old's Keane, by the way? Is he 31? Is he something like that? Yeah. Tarkowski's a couple of years on that. You know, they're probably more comfortable like that.
I don't care how we play. I want to win. That's all.
Yeah, Moyes would say it at home. He's got more chance of winning games at home by pushing up a little bit more because the opposition are going to probably sit deep.
But then there's the the problem with the selection.
Yeah, because we do. I mean, that's what teams have done, haven't they, over the last 6 or 7 weeks? They've hit space been behind us, and we're exposed, aren't we? Which it doesn't tend to happen away from home. What was the Blues question there? Sorry again. I'm answering the.
It wasn't a question.
It was the question from the question before.
It was more just good luck sitting back at home.
Yeah. Which is exactly the
fans wouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that comes into it as well.
But for me that doesn't matter. Like if we're gonna have more of a chance of winning and not getting beat 4-2 or conceding 3 goals or conceding 4 goals.
Yeah, but you take that away from home. You take a Moyes plays percentages. You'll take a point away from home, wouldn't you? But you wouldn't take a point at home.
I mean, Joe, you touched on it a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of frustration following on from that because it's not the first time we've conceded a lot of goals at home. But effectively, you've got 4 players out of that team who'd walk straight back in that team. You've obviously got Ndai, Kane and Dewsbury Hall, Idrissa Gueye. Might struggle to get straight in back in the team, but he's certainly on the list as a first team player. And then
Idrissa Gueye?
Yeah.
He walks back into that
Well,
side.
okay, there's proved me points out, and a Jared Brantwaite as well. Even with an Ndai and a Kane and Dewsbury Hall back in that team, Everton, completely different opposition. Now I know it's an issue because we've got squad depth issues and squad depth quality issues and stuff like that, and we're already like desperate for both of those players to return. But again, I'm just trying to, for my own sake, just get a bit of perspective. We discussed it even before the Brentford game that Everton have had some bad results this season, but they've always kind of bounced back with like 2 wins in a row, 3 wins in a row. Obviously, hopefully that has got to be the case against Wolves as well. I mean, it's not. Wolves are bottom of the league. They're on a bit of a good run at this moment in time, but I'd hate to think what a defeat or a draw would look like.
Yeah. Well, I think probably some perspective is needed. A draw, a failure to win will be really frustrating, but it leaves Everton as probably for the season the mid-table side that I think deep down we all probably know they are. We might all want them to push for Europe, and I think that we've seen at their best they are capable of potentially doing that, but that is at their best when they consistently have all most of their best players available. So yeah, this is a big week. Because Everton's season could essentially end this week, I think, and that sounds a really daft thing, and that, I say, broader context, that isn't a bad thing. They're not going to be involved in a relegation fight this season for the first time in 5. That is progress, and it won't feel like progress if we have a bad week this week, and it's going to be tough, kind of going through the next few months, kind of just going up and having a bitty season where you're kind of not really, where you're maybe fighting for. You're part of 7 or 8 teams that are basically fighting for the honour of finishing the top half of the table, aren't you? 9th, 10th, maybe 8th at best. But if they don't, the season isn't over. They could still get into Europe if they don't beat Wolves. But I mean, having set the platform by that win against Forest, or the 4 points from Forest and Burnley, to not win 2 home games against these 2 sides sets a bad precedent, even with the injuries. I think really they needed to kind of get games. They needed to get ahead of the game in this week. Yeah. To then carry on. So it's a big game. It's not going to be easy because Wolves obviously bottom, but they just got their first win. But they have they came very, very close to getting a point against Liverpool. Very, very close, like seconds from getting a point against Arsenal. They beat Man United, and obviously they won midweek. They've kind of
drew against Man United, did they?
Drew against Man United. Sorry, they beat West Ham. So yeah, and came very close to getting points off Liverpool and Arsenal. So they've clearly improved a lot. I think the reality is obviously they've got a manager whose style might be starting to have an impact on the team, but they've got to that point where they've got nothing to lose, haven't they? They've kind of got to that point now where it's like they may as well go for games to try and get wins because it's the only way they're gonna stay up or have a chance of staying up. So it's going to be a bit of a test because they got a bit of confidence, haven't they? But look, it's going to be a really difficult night if Everton don't win. I'll understand the frustration.
100% will.
And then you got the cup game on Saturday again, where Sunderland is by no means an easy draw. Everton haven't had many of them in the FA Cup for a while. Or at least they haven't had a run of games that have made it easy to get through to the latter stages. But like, if Everton aren't in a situation where Europe's looking possible this season, it's a free hit at the cup. I tell you, here's a question for you. Because
Did you ask me this question the other day?
I don't think so. Genuine, right? Okay. Would you rest players for Wolves to concentrate on Sunderland?
That did cross my mind. That's no kidding. I thought that this morning driving in.
And that's not me trying to be defeatist or anything like that. That's just me saying, Europe might be a possibility. Europe is kind of one of the difficult ones for Europe because it takes a while to work out how far down the table the qualification paces are going to go, doesn't it? But if we work on the basis that Europe is say there's a 20% chance of getting to Europe this season. It's probably lower than that, but a lot's got to go right. And this is still, even when it's at its best, it's still a threadbare squad that's got some big issues with it. Well, FA Cup run.
I love your optimism that you think we can actually rest players, to be honest, with the
squad. I think what you're saying is, would you say play Armstrong against Wolves?
I think Armstrong probably starts one of these two games.
Yeah. And the one if you follow your logic through, you're more likely to start against Wolves, I would imagine, than throw him in against Sunderland.
Probably, yeah. And also because I think there's more justification for that, because I think Robin had a difficult game the other day, and the performance was so bad and a few players let themselves down. So I think there's a justification, just in the same way that we're saying there's a justification that Moyes didn't use for keeping the back four the same against Brentford. There's now a justification that he can use if he wants to experiment with a few players.
Yeah. Going back to Patterson, do you think that actually he didn't play him on Sunday because actually he's got one eye of him either playing against Wolves or Sunderland?
I just think that with Patterson playing two games in a row, certainly starting them, was always going to be very difficult, bearing in mind where he's come from his hernia operation. So quite possibly.
You might get, I think what you're saying is, I think you're right, there might be a little bit more squad rotation than what you would normally expect against Wolves. The only caveat I'd say about this from the
so neither of you've answered my question.
No, I think he needs to be.
I would say I'd rotate a little bit.
Would you?
No, because he needs to be very careful about his next two team selections with what happened in the cup against Wolves in the League Cup.
I think. Well, going back to Joe's point is.
But does that not mean that you therefore concentrate on the Sunderland game?
Yeah.
No, because I think if you go into that Sunderland game on the back of a Wolves defeat, it's not a great look, is it?
That's more damaging than having. I think you've probably got a good point.
Yeah, I think it is probably. Yeah, I think it is against the bottom of the table side.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah.
I think that from the pages of history, there's a lesson there for Moyes. In 2012, he played Sunderland in the quarter final at Goodison on the Saturday, and we played Liverpool in the derby midweek at Anfield, and he didn't play Jelavic. Didn't play Cahill, I think one or two others, and we got beat 3-0, and he got pilloried for it. And then we played Sunderland on the Saturday, played the full team, we only drew 1-1. Okay, we won the replay, but after the game at Goodison, you've rested players to beat Sunderland, and you're not beating Sunderland, and so there's a lesson from history there for Moyes. But I do think there'd be possibly a little bit more squad rotation than what you would expect against Wolves. But even so, as you've heard this against Wolves once this season, we've probably got enough out there on the pitch to beat them. It's just that game on Saturday is probably a Sunday. It's probably mucked up a few plans a little bit, maybe for how he manages these three games this week from a personnel perspective. But I think the one thing we can agree, it would be very unwise for him not to select his strongest available team on Saturday. It'd be interesting to see what Sunderland play, by the way.
Yeah, really interesting, because they'll probably be in a similar dilemma.
Yeah, I think they'll know that they're not in a relegation fight, and they'll be more than happy to play a strong team on Saturday.
Yeah.
They've already picked up enough points. And it's a really good question, by the way. In fact, if you want to answer Joe's question in the comments, and I'll try and read a couple of them out, a couple of opinions. I mean, there's a couple of rallying cries in the comments. We've got Andy Walker saying all we can do is keep the faith, keep backing our lads, and look forward to getting everyone back. Plus, hope for a couple of players in the window. Strength and Honour, a YouTube channel, says grateful not to be worried about relegation. It's just frustrating to leak such silly goals, which I
get that, but Thiago was a good player. And we talk about windows. January, he was acquired, not contractually acquired during the January transfer window, wasn't he? A couple of years ago, I just thought he was excellent, and he was left space and stuff like that, but he deserved that by the way he shook up our centre halves during the game and settled them. And I thought, I tell you what was good as well. Damsgaard was really good. A type of player I haven't got.
Every single Brentford player was great after we conceded the first goal.
Yeah,
it's just. I honest to God, Gav, I do agree about the team selection, but I do put it down to that mistake from Tarkowski. The whole dynamic and the whole mindset of the team just seemed to shift and change for me.
For Everton or both teams.
Well, obviously, we gave them the confidence after scoring that goal, and we just looked lost. We just didn't look like we had a plan after we conceded that first goal. That comes to the experienced players.
Final word on Sunday for me is I didn't know what Moyes was doing at half time. I thought he made changes at half time that you do when you're getting beat 2-0 or 3-0 at home at half time. Having played McNeil, that imbalanced the midfield a little bit, he then basically effectively put Barry in that position, which made it imbalanced even more. Even though he'd picked Rail, who sort of, I don't know what he was doing. Wide right, was he? Whatever tactical mistakes he made at the start of the game, he magnified them even more by being really gung-ho at half-time. And Moyes is the last person I would expect as a manager to go gung-ho.
Did he overthink it? Did he think, well, we're down here, we need to go for it?
He did, in some respects. Because the reality is that Everton were getting torn apart at the end of that first half, and I think big structural changes were needed. Sharda should have scored when he had that volley from Pickford.
I know.
Thiago should have scored moments after that. It could easily have been 2 or 3-0 at half time, and was probably closer to being 2 or 3-0 than one each. I think that, and Moyes spoke about this in his post-match press conference. So I think my reading of his comments was essentially that, like a lot of us, I think he knows the importance of this week and how important it was to try and set things up. And I think he saw a side out there that was completely struggling to cope and basically went for wholesale changes. His view was that he didn't want to leave it till 60, 70 minutes and be left wanting. I think it was gung-ho, and that is unusual for Moyes. But I think his view was, this is a game that really we need to win, and I'm going to go for it now rather than wait for 10, 15 minutes and see them cut Everton open up a few more times. And I think, and again, I think, and I don't want to kind of give too much of a carte blanche to David Moyes, but just like in the first half, I think it was the players that let the tactics down. I don't really think we got to see what he had in mind in that second half, whether or not it would have worked or not. We didn't really get a chance to see it because they conceded 2 goals so quickly, and those goals also, I don't think really came from the tactics from the tactics of the change. There's an issue with corners. He makes those changes. 5 minutes in, they concede from a corner. The goal didn't come from the changes that had been made, but obviously what they did do is they threw everything out of kilter because then it's 2-0 and then it's a mess. And then the third goal, 60 seconds later, is It's who loses the first? It goes. What's the order? It's a bad pass from Irobanham. It's a bad decision from Mikalenko to go to ground, and then Keane commits and gets done too easily. So obviously they were overloaded at the back, but again, it was a goal that kind of came from mistakes that were made on the pitch.
Well, you haven't made them subs, you're then vulnerable because you can't change it again. And I think that's my point. That's my point.
True. But I think Moyes would have an argument to say that was happening anyway because they were getting absolutely picked apart at the end of the second half, the first half.
Yeah, but we left the midfield even more open by taking.
I think that's the point,
off.
Isn't it?
And by having, I don't know what Barry's role was in the second half.
It looked like he was on the right.
Well, I think it changed depending on the
I saw that they
pitch,
say kept McNeil on, put Rail behind just get in the middle. And it was just so imbalanced, and they just took advantage of that. Joe, I'd take your point that wasn't necessarily down to the tactics.
But the way I saw it initially, he went 4-3-3 with Barry on the right and Grealish on the left side of Beto. And interestingly, that's something he was going to do against Burnley at 0-0. He was going to, we've spoken a lot about Beto and Barry potentially playing together, and it's not really something that's come across the radar under Moyes. But at 0-0, about 55, 60 minutes in at Burnley, he got Barry ready to. He got who started that game? God, my head's going. Beto started at Burnley.
Beto.
Yeah, he got Barry ready to come on with the idea of putting him on the left wing, but decided against it because he just didn't have the personnel. If it went wrong, it would have meant taking off someone that he had nothing on the bench, so he had no other way of changing it. So.
Funnily enough, I've got no problem with experimenting with Barry on the wing, probably the right wing, but you've got to have your midfield set and more of a structure in there.
Yeah, I've thought about. I mean, if Grealish wasn't available, when you've seen him play, more naturally goes to the left, doesn't he, Barry? That if you were going to play him there, I've thought, well, he's playing wide left, but wide when you've got Barry and Beto on the pitch and you've got no width on the right hand side. And ironically, both goals came from crosses from left and right hand side. I didn't think that was a smart move. I think there's an argument to say if you're going to play 4-3-3, which I don't even think it looked like that, is you would have just kept McNeil on the pitch and played McNeil as the forward on the right hand side. Albeit that's not ideal either. Well, it's better option than Barry.
You don't like that? I'd say Diblin's better than. I'd have kept Diblin on ahead of
McNeil
on the right.
McNeil or Diblin.
Yeah, I think McNeil's left, and that's where he is for me. I played Grealish in the 10. That's another thing that I said. And put McNeil on the left.
Well, I played McNeil wide right or Diblin, as you said. But Diblin didn't, like McNeil, didn't cover himself in glory in the first half. I'd have probably stuck McNeil there because I just thought Barry. I didn't see what the points he was doing in the second half. I know he scored.
No.
And I think far too much importance to be placed on what happened after they went 3-0 ahead.
I agree with that. That's something. One of the big feedbacks I got from my match point, I mentioned fullbacks being an issue and other things, was that focus on Igor Thiago was on being something that Everton don't have was wrong because both strikers scored, and it was great. It's good that both strikers scored, and obviously Barry, that's 2 in 2 for him. That represents progress, but I don't think it should be lost that both goals essentially came when the game was gone. And both have missed and keep missing big chances when the game matters, and that as well as what you're getting from the in-game play from Thiago, where he's just constantly roiling the centre backs and causing problems and getting them wound up and winning balls and fighting for them. Beto and Barry aren't number 9s, and Moyes knows that, but we've got to try and work out how you can play to the best of their abilities if that's not what they're going to be. But another thing that Thiago did was he scored goals that mattered.
That's right. Somebody I was in a post-match interview, I won't say it was with Moyes, said I would take the positives both strikers have scored. Well, no, I'm judging Sunday's performance by what happens in the opening 53 minutes. Whatever happened after that, whatever players did, for me, and I include Armstrong. I wouldn't necessarily judge Armstrong's performance by when he coming on because the game had gone by then. I'm forget about the remaining 37 minutes, but what the players did, because I'm only interested in what they did on the first 52, 53, and collectively for a number of reasons they weren't good enough.
We'll move on then. Obviously, Wolves tomorrow, as we recorded, is Tuesday, so we'll play Wolves 7:30 on Wednesday. Joe, we're probably playing Wolves at the worst possible times to play them all season. Picked up points, picked up form, performances. Are you concerned?
Well, I think it'll be a tough game. I think Everton, the squad is weak at the minute, and I think that was the type of, it wasn't just the type of result, but the type of performance that could really knock aside the other day. They haven't, Moyes doesn't have many options to change it round, so it's going to take. I think it will take some courage tomorrow to kind of come out and play with the confidence that they probably need to hold off Wolves, because if they have a good start, if they don't let Wolves get any momentum early doors, then for all that they've had a good start, a good run, their confidence will still be fragile as they are still a poor side. If Everton can go 1-0 up, I'd expect Everton to win. But that is the type of game where you think that there'll be a lot of doubt in some of those players' minds right now, and I think he probably needs to make some changes because of that. What changes he'll make will be interesting, but I think he does need to make some. I'm a little bit nervous for.
If you're nervous, there's nothing down for us.
I am.
You can't be nervous.
Yeah,
we won't need the shift from you, Joe, as the Everton's Echo correspondent.
It's just got the makings of that stinker, hasn't it? The way they've picked up form, the way Everton played at the weekend, the fact that there is the fact so many players are out, the fact that some players have had bad games, the fact that it feels like a big game for Everton's season as well. Like there's a kind of weird pressure that isn't real pressure. It's not like they're in a relegation fight or anything like that. This isn't a 6-pointer, but there's that kind of nagging down. I think Everton struggle, and this is going to be something they're going to have to come to terms with as they get better and better. I think Everton struggle when they're the favourites, and they all go into tomorrow as the favourites, and with that should come a degree of confidence and assertiveness, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure where that's going to come from. I'd make changes tomorrow.
I mean, I don't know if fear is the right word to use, Gav, but obviously Wolves will probably come to Hill Dickinson with no fear because they're rooted to the bottom, highly unlikely that they're going to get out of it, and if they do, it'd probably be a miracle. But do we, after that Brentford game, the one thing that you don't want Everton players to go into that game is with that fear of in the back of your mind, if Wolves start well on the front foot or even pick up an early goal, because we've only come back from one game after conceding
Palace,
first.
Isn't it? Yeah. There's some stats out there about how we always win when we score first and always get beat when we draw whatever when we concede first. Yeah, I think you touched on the most important point is tomorrow getting the first goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we get the first goal, that'll dent their confidence. It'll up ours. If the opposite will be the opposite the case, it'll be that they will think the momentum is carrying on, and you think their confidence is shoots up, and the crowd's got the atmosphere at Goodison. God's sake,
do we need to beep something out there?
No, very nearly uttered to profanity. There's been a lot of comments about the atmosphere, hasn't it? And Hill Dickinson, I know Christmas is always a bit of a awkward time.
But is that...
And I think that the atmosphere is important to think tomorrow as well.
It's not just Hill Dickinson, that was Goodison as well, Gav.
Yeah, exactly. But we're at Hill Dickinson, so whatever happened to Goodison, No,
but what I'm saying is not just a new stadium issue, it's an issue that has been around for years.
But there's been a lot of... but part of the expectations and new spanking new stage and all that type of stuff. We all know what the expectations are. And it's been a bit flat, and a few people have commented this week on the stuff I've listened to and read, and the atmosphere will be important tomorrow, and that's why getting the first goal is vital, isn't it?
Ironically, the two atmospheres that have been extremely, raucous, if I'd use the right word there, it's probably the Newcastle game and the Arsenal game, and we got battered by Newcastle.
Palace was good in the second
Arsenal
half,
was okay. Yeah. So James Graham here with the comments. I'm so glad you just said that. The atmosphere improves with a decent performance on the pitch. Yeah. Now, obviously, with the Palace game, during the game, something happened, didn't it? The Moyes was getting irate. The referee wasn't on our side to an extent.
And some of the Palace playing,
James Garner pushed one of the Palace players over, didn't he?
Yeah.
So it's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. That's always been
the case. But I'm just saying that there's been a lot of stuff this week since the Brentford game about the atmosphere and why the atmosphere is what it is, and what we don't want tomorrow is a bad atmosphere, do we?
Is it highlighted that maybe more emphasised a little bit more because the stadium is so big that when the atmosphere and the noise isn't as loud, maybe it comes across as quiet?
Yeah, possibly, and the opposite is true as well, isn't it? Possibly.
So both can be true.
But it's just not a concern. It's just an observation, really, that's what people have said. And
we need the performances. We need the players.
Yeah.
We need something to happen on the pitch. We need the manager to obviously make right decisions. We need them to make bold decisions. And you could argue that the subs on Sunday were maybe bold, but just didn't work. And from a balanced structural point of view, they weren't great.
Yeah.
We'll come on to team selection because I know Gav's got to go for the next 5 minutes. Dave Ollie says, leave your team unbalanced and you have issues. Selection should be made with balance in mind.
Yeah.
And he also says, I get that Garner needed to play central midfield against Forest when we had no other numbers, but Roller's fit again now. Garner to right back. So with them two comments in mind, what would your team selection be then for Wednesday?
Oh.
Bearing in mind you've already maybe said that you'd rest players.
Well, no, I haven't said that. It was a question. I didn't actually give you my answer.
We're going to get your answer now then?
The splinters in me have been making me seat uncomfortable for a while. So I kind of I can very much see a scenario where Saturday's more important than Wednesday. But I think for the moment, I think you've got to put everything into Wolves. I think just because even if it is a bit daft, the value of getting an immediate response to Brentford's too much. And I think the morale, I think the loss of morale, if Everton were to not win tomorrow, would be more damaging than the gain of having a few more players with a few more minutes in their legs, a few more minutes of rest in their legs, if that makes sense. So I would go. I mean, I would probably go with O'Brien at centre back, and I would probably go with Patterson at right back if he's fit. Obviously, he's had a week or 8 days since Forest. So by that point, you'd hope that he'd be able to start the game. And I would probably go with. I mean, Garner has to stay in centre midfield for me at the minute. Different if you've got, say, Gay and a role that's played centre midfield for a couple of weeks, which he hasn't done. And even at Forest, he kind of played the number 10 role, which I'm not really sure. I would probably play Garner, Roll, and Armstrong in the middle.
Dropping
as a
free.
As a free, yeah, not out of 10.
Yeah.
As a free. I'd almost consider asking Roll and Armstrong to sit deeper and let Garner get a bit closer towards their goal, because I think he's got a little bit more.
He played there once last season, I think, Garner.
So I'd go with that free. I'd go Grealish off the left, Diblin off the right, and I'd probably give Beto a start now. I think. Well, Barry scored 2 in 2, hasn't he? So I think I still think when he had a good game he had a good all round game in fairness at Forest. He did link up pretty well, so I'd keep Barry up front, and I think that's what I'd do. I think that's where I'd go. If they had another option, I'd be tempted to put Grealish in a 10 and put, if they had an Ndai or an Alcaraz, someone else on the left. But you could do that with McNeil, but McNeil wasn't the best the other day, was he?
Well, I agree with you with that team. I'd certainly bring Harrison Armstrong in. I think Moyes has brought him back, and the frustration maybe wouldn't get too much for him, but he's obviously been getting minutes for Preston, hasn't he? He needs to show that he can get minutes in this next couple of weeks.
Well, he doesn't need to show anything, and no one has to prove anything. He's a young lad. He hasn't played that much in the Premier League, and it's wrong if anyone goes and puts too much pressure
No, sorry.
on
I mean,
him,
Moyes, give him the minutes rather than.
But as I say, I think that, say, Robinham didn't have the best game, maybe due to rest. I think it's a justification to make a change, and some fresh legs in there might help. And I think if you give him the safety of having Roll and Garner alongside him, and Jake O'Brien as part of the centre-back team directly behind him, then I think that you create a little bit of a safety net for Harrison Armstrong, who I have absolutely no doubt will become a Premier League centre midfielder. And I think it's in Everton's interest to see if they can accelerate that this season. And the only way they're going to be able to see if they can accelerate that this season is by giving him a chance to have proper minutes, which probably have to come in this week, because after this week, players will start coming back then. Unless Senegal get to the final, which they may well do, but they probably won't be back by Villa on the 18th, which is the day of the AFCON final. So even if they don't get to the final, they probably won't be back by then. But I struggle to see Moyes starting Armstrong at Villa away. Then it's Leeds at home a week later, 8 days later, by which point they might have a few players back. and then it's Brighton away, which is another tough game, and the players haven't come back by Leeds, they will by then. So if Armstrong's going to, I think we need to have a look at Armstrong to see if he can have a role this season, and to do that, it has to be done in these next 2 days.
Yeah,
really.
Wolves is the perfect game to do that, I think.
And just to kind of like just finish me for today, if this week doesn't go how we want it to do, and we kind of think that Everton are out of both cups, and you know they look like they're in that battle for kind of between 9th and 13th or something like that. One, we have to remember where we were 12 months ago and how we've been the last 5 years. That's progress. But two, the rest of the season has to be put to good use, and that has to be done to kind of explore what some of these players can do in the squad. I'd be tempted to kind of, you then have more of an opportunity if he's still with the club to have a look at like Asnu instead of Mikolenko, even if it's just for the last half an hour in games. Have Armstrong around the group if you think that you can get use from him and give him good minutes if he shows enough in these whatever opportunities he gets. And it's why I don't know what the reticence has been over buying fullbacks over the last 2 years or so. I mean, I know what it was like previously because they didn't have much money, but both in in January and now, like it's almost like they're spending too much time looking for the perfect right back at the perfect price, when actually I think just any specialist right back who can stay fully fit would improve that side. And if you don't want to do that and spend decent money on a right back who's a proven article now, then go and spend a bit of money or a bit less money on someone that you think might be able to do the job, because then you've got 6 months, 4 months, 5 months to integrate them. You've got months to mess around with your side and see you can play where and solve problems. And that's why, like, I don't think that if this week goes badly, they should rule out making moves in this January transfer window, because they have a luxury that haven't had for a long time, and that is they'll have 4 months of this season before the summer starts to prepare for next season. If they want to make progress, that's an opportunity that can't be missed.
Okay, Gav, we'll finish off team selection. Do you agree with Joe, or would you go different and then give us your prediction as well to
Did
finish
you
off?
say... Oh, I agree with your thoughts.
So Barry
Patterson.
Yeah.
Right
Grealish
back.
and Dibbling out wide.
Grealish, Dibbling, okay, yeah. I was going to mention, I think that you want to pick Armstrong, you've got to pick him in a 3. You can't have like Armstrong, Garner, and then say McNeil or somebody like that as a 10. You've got to have like a flattish 3 midfield, and I certainly think out of the 3, Garner is probably the best to play and a little bit more advanced. So I mean, Dibbling selection is an awkward one. I mean, I suppose you just got to show faith in him, because he was. I think Paul has probably given him a compliments, isn't it, on Sunday. RB is caught up in this right back position with O'Brien and stuff like that.
Bearing in mind that he's younger and everyone got more invested in him, and he had a genuinely good game against Forest and showed glimpses against Burnley as well, and that he is someone that is also impacted by that right back situation.
So I wouldn't.
I think you have to.
I wouldn't disagree in Joe's selection. Where and picking up further on your points, Joe, is said to you a few weeks ago, and didn't I? That actually is our January transfer window and what we do the rest of the season is all in the context of, like, Moyes has only got 18 months left on his contract. So it's like what Moyes' plans are, what Kinnear's Freakin's plans are for the management of the club beyond them 18 months, and how that impacts how we play the January transfer window. You know what you're saying is right there. It in some respects, if the pressure's off us a little bit, give game time to players who wouldn't necessarily want game time, be given game time in the last 4 or 5 months of the season. Moyes, who may have desires beyond the 2 years, he may not want to experiment. He might just want results that will give the owners an argument to say, this is why you need to retain me beyond those 2 years. So, you touched on it Friday, Joe, and I've spoken about it. To me, there is there's 3 things going on. I'd say the fans' expectations, Moyes' expectations, and Freakin's expectations at the moment. And all them 3 expectations are all probably different. But you'll have a clue, really, what happens in January, how they play January. Perhaps if they spend a load of money, you might go back to say, you might think Moyes is the person to take us forward there beyond, beyond the next 18 months. If you don't spend any money, that might mean that actually the playing conservative, just see what's going to happen, or it might mean, well, we're not going to give Moyes any money because he's not the person to take us forward. So I just think it's decisions in January, I don't think are necessarily about strengthening the team. It's more about what is the strategy of the owners and Stoke Kinnear beyond those 18 months, because you'll be giving contracts to players beyond the current manager's contract, won't you? And the manager only got 3 transfer windows left, of which 2 are in January. So I think that there's that mesh, isn't it, at the moment, probably within the club's decision making and the fans' expectations about what exactly do we want over the next 18 months. And there may be completely different opinions there, within the club. And I think that's interesting, because it was quite obvious that when Friedkins came in, that their first choice of manager wouldn't have been Moyes, would it really? But they were forced into Moyes because of what was going on, under Dyche. Abbey, he'd done a good job for us, and they end up giving him an extended contract because that's Moyes' bargaining tool, isn't it, within all that? The same way Allardyce was given an extra 12 months, wasn't it? But they got rid of him after 6. So I just think that the January transfer window is not just about thinking about strengthening the team. It has to bear in mind about what is the medium, stroke, longer term strategy of the club. And I'll just be fascinated to see what happens.
I mean, we're going to have to finish off now. I agree with all that, but I don't think there's any excuse whatsoever to not go a right back this January.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it goes back to Joe's points, what we do with the rest of the season, and Moyes may just want to get as many points as possible. I don't want to experiment. They might, director of football, whoever, I know we haven't got one technically, might say, well, can we give, stronger
recruitment team?
Get a high number of minutes to players who are not getting them at the moment. Isn't it interesting?
Yeah, it's a whole new pod in itself, isn't it? Which we can definitely come on to. Do you want to give a prediction? I'm going to go 2-0. I'm going to jump in first. I think we're to Everton, obviously.
I'd also say it is going back to the page of history. The last time we had an FA Cup third round tie against Sunderland, the Everton manager got attacked by fans in the game before. So I hope Moyes has got extra protection with him tomorrow. That was Harry Catterick at Blackpool.
I think Moyes can handle himself.
Yeah. I think first goal is important, but if we get that, which I think we will, I think it's got a 2-0 written all over it.
We all 2-0. Wow, clean sweep.
But I don't think it's we're definitely going to win 2-0 and win. I think it's a lot more tougher game than what it probably appeared even 3 weeks ago, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, we are going to finish off there for your latest Royal Blue podcasts. Me and Tony are going to be back for the post-match show straight after the Wolves game, and Joe and is it Chris working? You and Chris, or
it'll be Chris on Friday. Thursday and Friday.
Wednesday for the game, sorry. Are you covering the game?
Working the game. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if Connor was going to be doing it. So follow Joe's coverage on the Liverpool Echo website following the Wolves game as well. And we'll see you soon.